Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us in our SharePoint Premium 101 webinar. This is the first of our Modern Work winter webinar series where we're going to go into all things SharePoint Premium, starting with the 101. So thank you for taking the time. We will also look to get you asking some questions as we go throughout this, and we'll answer at the end of the session. So make sure as you go through, things pop up you want entered, let us know. We're keen to make sure that we also tailor the next sessions in these series to what you actually want to know about. So make sure you also feed us that key information that's relevant to you as well. We'll reach out after this session as well to make sure, just if there's any areas that you think might be more focused for you in particular, we'll try and make sure we can sort of tailor those down that path as well. Joining me today is Janika Maraseka from our Modern Work practice. He heads up all things Modern Work, and also Aaron Cunnington, who is the Antares Managing Director. Today we're going to go through all things SharePoint Premium, where AI meets content management. And if you're like me, you've been hearing about SharePoint Premium for some time now, especially this year as Microsoft's ramped up their AI initiatives around all their products. You're going to get a good entry level and hopefully a little bit deeper around what it could do for your organization. A little bit about Antares and who we are. We are a Microsoft solutions partner. We've been specializing in modern work, digital apps, and data and AI for quite some time now. We are very much passionate innovators, and we like to lead that digital transformation through really focused solutions that target your needs. We have over 17 years of SharePoint experience alone. So we have founded our business on SharePoint. That gives us a great grounding in all things SharePoint through the evolution. And if you're like me as well, you remember the early days of SharePoint right through now to where we are today. It's an interesting sort of evolution, and it's only getting better as we go now. So SharePoint is becoming the tool, the product that we've always knew it could be. So more importantly, just as you look through across our capability areas, that modern work practice is really all around our sort of secure and collaborative, remote work and productivity space. So keen to make sure that you ask those questions that are relevant to your organisation around those areas too. We are part of the Cloud Collective. For those who don't know, that's an alliance of 4 Microsoft partners. We actually focus in 4 particular areas, which come together to deliver all of the 6 solution areas across all 3 Microsoft clouds, being Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365, and also Azure. That gives us that capability to help you, not just in the SharePoint space, but also things around SharePoint and those other areas that are really essential to having a fully harmonized business productivity suite. As you can see across our specialized areas, we can go deep. So when you look at SharePoint Premium and integration with Teams and things like Teams meeting rooms, also that seamless integration around your Dynamics ERP, and also when it comes to security and security posture and cybersecurity and those sort of aspects as well. When we start talking documents and records management, security is one of those key areas as well. So what you've got in Antares is the ability to leverage the best of all minds across all of the capabilities of Microsoft product ecosystem to ensure you get the best, but also you're making sure your organization is well placed to be well guarded against sort of areas. All right, today we're going to go through what is SharePoint Premium. So the team will lead you through a little bit about that from a different perspective of different personas. We'll also talk about what's coming soon, what's available today out of the box, and also a little bit about the Premium and Copilot coming together. That's an interesting topic as well. Touch on licensing and a little bit about what's next. So the agenda is not going to go too deep into everything. As I said, as an entry point, this is really about sort of setting the scene, and we're going to use your feedback to help us sort of craft these series down paths which you're going to find more beneficial as we go through this. So please take the time to interact with us as you go through it and keep us, delivering you the content that is going to be relevant for you and also in your evolution of both your business and your personal knowledge when it comes to how these tools and products can work better for you. So over to the team for what is SharePoint Premium.
Thank you, Greg. What is SharePoint Premium, which we'll be going through and covering off in today's session. So SharePoint Premium, the future of AI-powered content management and experiences in one platform. SharePoint Premium is made up of 3 core features. And as we go through the process, you'll understand some of these features are already in service today, but also some of these are being introduced in this year. So experiences, so the boosted productivity, high value documents and solution hub. So all new way for us to consume content. So in Teams, through the browser, have the ability to create content, create documents, integrate things around SharePoint signatures, and using AI-driven rules and clauses to help us manage that overall content experience. Processing, some of you may know this, and I'll give a little bit away, is around SharePoint Syntex. So how do we process content into SharePoint, apply annotations, apply tagging, autofill content, taking us through that processing information as well. And the big one as well is around governance. So how do we protect the data that we have in SharePoint? And there are many elements of that around data governance, restricted access, event insights, backup and recovery as well, and archiving. So for those who don't know, here's a brief story about the evolution of SharePoint Premium. So back in 2020, some of you may know SharePoint Cortex was the original program that brought us SharePoint Syntex. In 2022, SharePoint Syntex was relaunched as Microsoft Syntex, expanding its capabilities to a wider skill set, allowing us to do more things broadly around all of M365 than just SharePoint itself. In 2023, SharePoint Premium was announced, integrating that SharePoint Syntex into the SharePoint Premium umbrella, which includes advanced management systems, advanced SharePoint management as well. And then in 2024, being able to fully transition to the SharePoint Premium umbrella, including things around content experiences and also governance features such as archiving and backup as well. So that's a brief history of SharePoint Premium. Cool. Content experience is the first one. I'll hand this over to Aaron to talk a little bit about what to expect from a content experience, as most of these are still coming and not generally available just yet.
Okay, thank you, Janica. As Janica mentioned, some of them are new. Certainly, the three core areas around SharePoint Premium being content experiences, content processing, and the governance piece. There's sort of two new areas, which is the content experiences, which is relatively new to the platform, and a lot of that is still in progress and not here yet. The content processing is the SharePoint Syntex, so that's been around, and there's a lot of those functionality that's still there. It's just been brought into the SharePoint Premium platform, and I believe that was mostly because of the naming convention caused some confusion. And as we saw by Project Cortex to SharePoint Syntex to Microsoft Syntex to now SharePoint Premium, is they're trying to get that concept of it's not a separate product, it's an extension to the platform, and it's bringing the capabilities in from there. Content experiences is primarily new. There's four areas within content experiences, and I won't go into too much details on some of them because we simply don't know all of the details yet. But the first key part is that there's integrated file viewer. This is something that we previously had to have used third-party plugins to achieve some of the capabilities that will now be out of the box. So there's going to be over 400 file types that are available in preview, file preview in the file viewer. There's the business document apps within Teams, which is providing central location to manage critical business documents. There's the AI-driven rules deviation engine and clause analyzer. This one's pretty cool and using a lot of the Azure AI capabilities to go and assess your information in your documents, which will cover a bit more of that. And then also the document hub, and I'll give some examples of that from there. The integrated file view, as we said, that is new, and it's an enhancement of what was previously just being able to view your Word, your Office documents in the browser, is now bringing that capability to a much broader range of documents that you can actually integrate into the browser to be able to view and also edit and annotate. So that's the things that you can see things at the moment. You can't do a lot of the annotating within the browser. So that's coming. But again, previously this was third-party solutions that you'd have to get to achieve some of those capabilities. I think one of the cool parts is the business document apps. And I think this is going to have a lot of relevance for organizations to really control the ability with SharePoint Premium. It's introducing the solution to work with your high-value documents, and they can be documents like contracts, statement of works, orders, invoices. It's bringing the new business document apps into Teams, so it's bringing that capability of having a single pane of glass to find all of these key documents and puts it into a central location so that you can manage that. So it really gives you the ability to have a full list of all your high-value documents in a unified view, It gives you the ability to have actionable insights. So you've got some reporting. You've got things like alerts that are coming through. You might start using it as a contract management solution in a way that will allow you to highlight when contracts are due for renewal, etc. On top of that, it starts to integrate some of the new capabilities around content assembly. So you've got being able to build contracts inside Word documents using standard templates, leveraging the content assembly capabilities, which we'll cover in a minute. That content assembly will allow you to fill in details of that contract with data that you've got either in SharePoint or manual data or integrated into third-party data as well. So I think that's key. You can also compare contracts with related contracts using the new AI-driven rules deviation engine. That will allow you to ground your data in your existing contracts and compare a new contract with that and highlight where is that deviated, what do I need to have a look at, what's not a standard clause, etc. So it brings all of those capabilities into one central place. And then also once that's approved, you can have that contract that be routed for signature using the SharePoint e-signature capability. So another feature that is being brought in is that e-signature capabilities that we've got. That's going to allow us to effectively go from creation of a document template through to a workflow, sending it out for someone for approval and getting an e-signature. It's using the SharePoint e-signature capability, but if you've already got DocuSign or Adobe Sign, it can integrate those capabilities into it as well. The other thing too is, being able to upload large volumes or high value documents into the AI-driven clause analyzer, and that will help you automatically analyze and distill that information. So, which is, we're on the wrong side, wrong way. Janica? Sorry, got to go backwards. All right. Sorry. Okay, we've lost the track of the slides there. So the second one, or the other area we wanted to talk about, which is the new one, which is the Documents Hub. So this Documents Hub within SharePoint Premium is effectively allowing you to create externally accessible portals or document portals for customers that are or people that aren't within your environment. So think about for using some scenarios where you wanted to create a document portal for board paper management, as an example. So you can have, creation of your board papers being stored in a central location for upcoming annual general meetings. The company, you can actually use the Document Hub to create a dedicated board paper workspace. So this will allow you to customize the branding to match your corporate branding. It'll also allow you to set up access for board members or committee members or external parties where they're not using your internal Azure AD or Entra ID capability. So you could have a third-party person with a Gmail account that can log in and get access to that portal, that documents portal. It's still managed within SharePoint. It's still safe and secure and gets all the capabilities around it. It also gives you the capability of using that document app within Teams as well. So, the third party can still get access to that if they need to and see all of that information in the one spot. But, you think about things like board papers, sharing content with volunteers. If you're not for profit, you might want to share your training materials with a large group of volunteers for, an upcoming event. This allows you to set that create a volunteer portal and have that Document Hub as the central location where people can go in. Again, you're not forcing them to have an Antares ID, a particular ID of your organisation. It allows them to be a lot more flexible with that. I think also things like vendor document coordination, if you're a construction company that's got large architectural plans or dealing with lots of documents with external parties, gives you the ability to do that and put some workflow processes around it as well. As well as sharing product documentation, I should say. So if you think about the work that we do, we might want to share designs with our partners or our customers, and being able to do that in an easy fashion where you may not be on an Azure AD account, and allowing that to be set up and branded appropriately is a nice, easy way to do that. So what's available today? So we talked about some of the things in the content experiences is almost there, but it's not quite there. So some of it is like the file view, you can see bits of it, but you can't get the full functionality. What is available today? If we look at content processing, as I said before, the key differences that I see between the three tiers of SharePoint Premium is that content experience or content processing is based on SharePoint Syntex, Project Cortex, SharePoint Syntex, Microsoft Syntex, now SharePoint Premium. So there's a lot of capabilities within the content processing capabilities that are available today and have been around for a while. Some of them new. I talked about the e-signatures, the ability to capture electronic signatures natively through SharePoint now is a pretty good feature. You don't need to go out and use Adobe Sign or DocuSign. However, if you do have Adobe Sign or DocuSign, it does integrate natively into the capabilities. So translation of files or videos, again, being able to have multilingual information automatically translated for you is pretty good for any global organisation. Or again, if I think about that volunteer, not-for-profit volunteer, you might have a volunteer whose native speaking language is not English, and you need to translate that for them. So you can still provide, say, the document hub, the portal, where the volunteers can get all that information and have the translation happen in the environment rather than pre-translated beforehand. Document processing, the unstructured, freeform, structured capabilities. This, I think, is the core of SharePoint Syntex or SharePoint Premium that adds an immense amount of value for how we can move towards AI-powered document management, and we'll talk through a little bit more around that. The content assembly is also, an enhancement around how can we build out our templates and documents quite easily. So if you want to create, contracts or statement of work or letter of consent or sales pitches even, you could, if you've got standard templates you can utilize the content capabilities there. And there's a few new ones that are still, in the works. So the personally identifiable information detection, so automated column fill out, that's sort of there at the moment. The redaction capabilities, pulling information out with sensitive information and covering that up. SharePoint Embedded and the Premium Microsoft Graph API. We're not going to go into those ones, because they're not fully released, but I think the SharePoint Embedded is also a great opportunity for organisations to start thinking about how can I build applications on SharePoint. Previously, we used to build a lot of applications that would back in and into SharePoint. Now you have the ability to have that SharePoint embedded capabilities for bringing in real enterprise capabilities around document management into the custom apps that you build. And you don't need to have the SharePoint front end and that infrastructure around SharePoint in place, because it's only accessible via an API. So you could actually build some pretty cool applications on top of SharePoint embedded as a framework to manage all of that lifecycle management of your documents, etc. So document processing. Again, I'm a big fan of this one. I love the capabilities of what it can bring. Yeah, effectively at the heart of it is the OCRing, the optical character recognition capabilities. So the document processing really is about the OCR technology. It's a sophisticated system that allows you to read through your documents, but whether they're invoices or contracts or reports, and extract text with precision out of those documents. The key here is it's using deep learning models to understand your documents. It's not just recognizing characters, it's actually recognizing the content. This means that we can identify and extract key data points out of those documents, whether they're defined or whether they're hidden within free-form text. And the extraction capabilities are from structured documents to unstructured to, as I said, free-form text within a document. So the SharePoint Premium adapts quite well from pulling out specific information from an invoice to capturing clauses from contracts. So the document processing capabilities really do shine here. And then there's the more complex tasks, which is around, having models that can detect phrases or patterns and making sense of unstructured data that traditionally systems might miss. Okay, sorry, and I believe my camera might have frozen, so I'm just going to turn that on and off. or either that or I'm just sitting exceptionally still, one of the two. Let me try that again, sorry. As that's trying to come back on, there we go, we're back. So I think the key there with the document, sorry, just on the document processing as well, you've got pre-built models that you can use, but you can also build custom models yourself. So that's an important key piece of information there. So and some of the use case scenarios, if you think about having, the corporate document management for a corporate legal team, having the legal team with, handling vast array of documents, they can effectively, upload documents into SharePoint, have the SharePoint Premium go through, identify what type of document is it. Is it an invoice? Is it an NDA? And start working around what do I need to do with that document. So it allows us to go into the document, extract information out of it, and being able to then populate content around that document, such as the metadata that goes with it, or kicking off a workflow with that based on the content that's discovered within the document. So, from being able to automatically tag it to creating AI-generated tags and metadata, which is allowing for greater search capabilities, through to, the workflow integration of that information of that document is quite helpful. As I said, you might have a contract that goes out, that goes through that, comes through, gets all the metadata extracted out of it, populated within that, put a document assembly capability. So you're using templates to generate that document and put a signature around it at the end of it with the SharePoint e-signatures. The other part of content experiences is around the image tagging. I think, the key there is it's not dissimilar to what we just spoke about before, but just another use case. It is being able to go in and pull that information out of an image and using the image recognition capabilities to identify information within that image to apply the tags to it. And you can do that at the bulk level as well. So, when we start looking at a digital asset management system for the marketing team, when you're managing extensive digital content for campaigns and social media and product launches, etc., having the ability to have your images identify what's in that image. So if you look at the one we've got on the right, being able to upload that image and say the image tag is saying there's a bicycle in it, so I'm going and tagging the bicycle as the image. So it gives us the ability to automatically tag that image upon uploading. It gives us the ability to search across that image quite easily and extensively, and it allows us to put some workflow processes around that as well. So the key there is that where you've got all these images and information that might be uploaded into a repository, instead of someone having to go through and classify them and manually categorize them, we can start using the AI image tagging capabilities to identify what is in that, classify it, and make it easier for us to get better use out of those images in the future. And again, we talked about the column autofill. I think here it's the same sort of concept of being able to use that document processing capabilities to identify what information is within our documents that we've got, extracting that information out and being able to apply that as metadata or as being able to create a workflow or route a document to a different location based on that. And then, the last one that I wanted to cover off, which was around content assembly. I think the key here is being able to have our content, our templates created for all of the routine documents that we would create, and being able to utilize the ability to go in and create those templates and then use data from different parts of the system to automatically populate that information and generate a document on the back of it. So really it's about, content assembly is allowing us to automate the generation of repetitive documents like contracts and letters and NDAs, etc. It helps gathering and organising and preparing different pieces of content. So, being able to find text and images or look up a customer's name and bring all their data across into it. It's saving time by automating that document creation process, which can result in significant, time savings. and making it easier and reduce errors within that. And it's enhancing the content lifecycle, from creation and classification to search and being able to surface that information on the back of that. So it really is designed to help people be more effective with the tools that they've got. Content governance. Janica, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. So yes, we'll cover off the third piece of SharePoint Premium being content governance. So again, these features are mostly available today. There's a couple here that aren't available today, but from a content governance perspective, the backbone of this is going to be SharePoint Advanced Management, which a lot of you may or may not know. Again, rolling it up under that SharePoint Premium banner. So key features from content governance is going to be the data access governance. So the ability to have and gain a big picture look at what sites we have available to us, and also where sharing is happening, right? Are we sharing too much? Are we sharing too little, for example? The ability to review sites as well. So IT has now a centralized way to review site access. Who's one who owns the site and content? Is any risk associated with that? One of the cool ones, I think, which I'll cover off as a use case, is restricted access control. So specify which security groups are allowed to access what content. Really, really cool. AI-driven policy recommendations. So the ability to leverage AI and Copilot to make recommendations around where we should be driving our policies to improve our data governance. Content event insights. So allowing us to see in our environment who's oversharing information or who's downloading information, right? Allows us to make more smarter decisions around what policies we need to have in place. Copilot for SharePoint Admin Center. Copilot is coming out everywhere throughout M365. This is still to be released, but going to be coming soon. And I think that will take us, allow us the ability to then drive some of those recommendations and using Copilot to actually implement some of those things. And I think the two others to cover off, which is being rolled up, which is currently seen standalone, is M365 archiving and M365 backup. So the ability to archive and reduce some of the costs we're seeing within SharePoint itself, and the ability to have a self-service backup and restore capability direct from the admin center, right? So some first-party solutions that Microsoft have released as part of the SharePoint Premium banner. Most of the stuff we'll touch on today is around SharePoint Advanced Management. As you can see here, this is what's available today with the license around SharePoint Advanced Management. There's 9 features here, and we'll cover off some of these in some use case scenarios. The first scenario I wanted to cover off was site level restriction. So the scenario I wanted to paint is around student records. So the background around this is around 2017, the Royal Commission made 5 record keeping recommendations. And the challenge that schools have been facing is how do we manage and maintain student digital records relevant to child safety and wellbeing? And in this instance is related to M365. There are other systems out there that manage it, but for us, it's M365. And that is just one piece of the puzzle. So how is SharePoint Premium going to help with site level restricted access? So we're able to limit users of the M365 group. So that what that means is only groups and the users in that group applied to the site can access and share the information of the nominated site. That makes it really, really relevant because we might have different groups that have access to key pieces of information around a child's safety or well-being, and that needs to follow them through. So that dynamically allows us to have information applied, allowing supply groups to the specific pieces of information as the student progresses throughout the years. This also then removes accidental sharing. So as an owner or a member of that group, you can't accidentally share that information with users outside of that group. So what does that mean? It means that if you are a child's teacher for year 1, when that student moves to year 2, you no longer need access to that information. So the year 2 teacher doesn't necessarily have the ability to accidentally share that information back to the year 1 level without an internal process around that for whatever reason. So it helps us restrict who has access to what information and sensitive information as well. So the outcome is having a well-structured SharePoint environment that aligns with the Royal Commission recommendation is only part of the battle, right? So having the ability to dynamically change groups based on who needs access to what information as children progress through the years is really important and really helps us make sure that we're limiting what information is accessible by the users in the organization. Another scenario that we're seeing commonly is OneDrive restricted access. So the scenario I'm covering off here is around frontline worker and casual staff. So the example here is that a mining company requires frontline worker staff to collaborate and communicate with staff members. The challenge is we want to allow staff members to access key workloads and key information within the organisation, but we want the ability to restrict where content can be created. And OneDrive is one of those places that content can be created for the me, but we want that information to be created for the we, right? So that's where SharePoint comes in. So by doing this, we're able to restrict the administrative overhead for users or admins to manage OneDrive for users who don't have it, who don't need it or require it. We minimize the risk around staff members creating content in OneDrive, which should be part of a broader team, right? So we're reducing that risk itself. And improved organization. So the ability to making sure that we have information in the right location to make it searchable, findable for everyone, but also taking advantage of Microsoft next-gen workloads like Copilot. So if that information sits within OneDrive, it's not findable for the wider users or the part of that team, right? So making sure it's in the right location. So the outcome is restricting access offers enhanced security and controlled collaboration, focusing on productivity that is aligned with the compliance requirements we have, right? So that's essentially one of the features of OneDrive restricted access. Another one is block downloads, something that we see that a lot of customers have asked in the past, but now it's part of Premium. The use case I'm going to have is around NFP casual workers. So as casual workers come, there's a very cyclical nature of casual workers ramping up and down for different initiatives and programs. So an NFP organisation will really need to ensure that casual staff have access to key pieces of documentation to support their work, right? So they want to be able to do that, but we want to also minimize the risk around data leakage, right? So how do we stop users accidentally taking information from us that they shouldn't? That could be in the form of downloading that information, printing it, as those things might have sensitive information. So using the block downloads, we're able to configure specific sites that people have access to. So some sites may be fine for them to download as part of their job, forms, procedures, policies, but there might be some internal documentation we don't want users to be able to download, print, or sync those files. So we can configure it to be specific on those files. It removes the need to set up Enter ID conditional access. While it's best practice to have conditional access applied to those users, it removes the need for it to have that. We can specifically set up this policy for those specific sites to block downloads. It also limits app access, right? So users will only be accessing key information from M365 apps, right? So that's a key thing as well, downloading apps that we trust for them to be able to access that information. So applying this allows us, NFPs, to reduce the risk around data loss and organisation of the casual staff as they ramp up and down. One of the ones that I really like is around applying the default sensitivity labels. So the scenario we're going to have here is people and culture want to develop a new policy or a procedure that is HR related. The challenge is we want to be able to safeguard that information that we're creating. It might not be ready for people to find and be able to search. So being able to create a space that users can collaborate with confidence and apply the default sensitivity label to all existing or all new and modified information or documents as part of that document library. So what does that do? It minimizes the risk to ensure users don't need to have to worry about applying sensitivity labels, right? They can be complex, they can be tough to understand, there can be many of them. So we allow the user just to work as they normally would, and we take care of the ability to apply default sensitivity labels. Again, it improves the organization, right? So having a well-structured information management or IA is important to find information quickly, but we also want to have that to protect our sensitive information as well. By having that default sensitivity labels, it also removes the ability for things like Copilot to find that information if we're not ready for it to be found just yet. So the outcome is that people and culture can confidently collaborate on all types of documents, sensitive, to make sure that that environment is secure, and it removes and eliminates the need for team members to have to worry about what the complexity lies around sensitivity labels. It allows them to concentrate on actually delivering the new policy itself. The next two pieces I'll touch on is more around the administrating side of things. So it's going to be around M365 archive, right? So what is a scenario that we're seeing with most customers is that Microsoft essentially limits the amount of storage we get out of the box with our subscription. So typically that's calculated with 1 terabyte per tenant plus 10 gigabytes per licensed user, right? So that's going to be our SharePoint storage. The challenge is as we consume more and more M365 services, we create more content, and that content needs to live somewhere. So therefore, it directly impacts our storage costs, right? So organizations are looking for ways to actually, how do we reduce that cost? How do we drive a life cycle around how we archive information out to colder storage? That could be as simple as content that isn't being touched in 2 years. It could be as simple as when a project is finished, it goes to an archive state. So helping define what those rules are like. So with M365's first party backup as part of SharePoint Premium, or archive as part of SharePoint Premium, you'll be able to archive SharePoint sites, which is really cool. And the ability to archive SharePoint site collections, which includes document libraries, files, lists, and all the metadata as well. So I think it's really important. So that entire site can be archived. From a cost-saving perspective, you're going to be using a lower tier storage, cold storage from a Microsoft perspective. So you're not using Microsoft's expensive storage. So the outcome is that organizations and admins have the ability to retain that important data that is inactive and move it to a cheaper tier of storage, not leveraging Microsoft's most expensive storage as well. So this is pretty cool. Typically, you've had to use a third-party tool to do it. Now it has the ability to do it from the SharePoint Admin Center natively out of the box. The last piece is around M365 backup. Again, this is around business continuity. Typically, we've always had to use a third-party tool, and it's still a very good case for using a third-party tool, but the ability for Microsoft to have now a first-party backup is really good. And again, from the confines of your one SharePoint portal and the admin center. So the challenge is that ransomware security attacks are happening more and more, right? So we need the ability to be able to recover business critical content at scale really, really quickly. So a matter of hours, not days, weeks, months, right? So that's really important. And ultimately, from a backup perspective, it is the responsibility of our customers or the customers to back that information up, because Microsoft aren't taking that responsibility. But now that Microsoft offer that first-party problem solution, it helps us take on and meet that challenge. So from a backup perspective, we're able to back up all SharePoint sites, OneDrive accounts, and also Exchange mailboxes in your tenant. We can restore OneDrive accounts, SharePoint sites, and mailbox items to a point in time for your entire tenant as well. The ability to search and filter and find contacts using key metadata, I think, is really important too, and also select date ranges. And granular restore. At the moment, granular restore only supports Exchange and mailboxes, but coming soon will be SharePoint and OneDrive. So the outcome is it essentially assures that we can have a process and a plan in place around business continuity. So if anything does happen, it allows us to restore and bring back our data really, really quickly, as opposed to having to rely on Microsoft or a third-party tool here. But again, there is a use case for using a third-party tool for both backup and also archiving as well. SharePoint Premium and Copilot. So how can it help you get the most out of your Copilot deployment? I think Aaron's going to touch on this one.
Sure. Thank you, Janica. Backup was a riveting conversation. Glad you covered it, which is good. I wanted to talk through a little bit around Copilot and mainly to I guess address for customers that are looking to move to Copilot, or if you're thinking about it, then there's a lot of work. Often there's a lot of things that need to be done to make sure you get the most out of Copilot. And so we're having a lot of those conversations with customers around how do they go from where they are now to being ready for Copilot, and then on that journey from being ready for Copilot to being Copilot optimized. And really is the first part is how do I get enough of my infrastructure and systems in place to make sure I can start using some of the Copilot capabilities safely, through to knowing that it's not the best environment with access to all the information that I should have, through to being Copilot optimized, which means I've got everything in the right spot. Everyone has got access to everything that they should have and nothing that they shouldn't. And the tools and technology has the ability to access the information, to leverage its capabilities to bring back the right answers for me when I'm trying to find information. So whilst this is SharePoint Premium, thinking about like how it can actually add value for Copilot, it's really about knowledge management and information management for organizations. Whether you're going to use Copilot or not, you really should have as much capabilities about identifying the information out of the content you've got, being able to classify that in the most appropriate way so that it's easy for me to use today, but more importantly, it's easy for me to find tomorrow, and it's easy for the organisation to find tomorrow, next month, next year, etc. So the principles here are the same for whether it's document management and information management within the organisation, or whether it is used for Copilot. And using, it's effectively using old school AI, being machine learning, to get ready for the new school AI, which is generative AI. So I think that's probably some of the key points is how do we lay the foundations for being Copilot optimized? So on that journey, if you are thinking about it, there's a bit of work that you should be doing. If you haven't done already, then there's stuff that you will need to do. SharePoint Premium, I think, is pivotal for you if you're transforming from that Copilot ready to optimize, because it really is about how do I make sure that the content that I have in my environment is not only managed and protected, but is accessible by the right people. And so some of the key values that SharePoint Premium is going to bring on that Copilot readiness journey is the AI-powered content management capabilities. Being able to get that advanced content management capabilities powered by AI. And again, it's old school machine learning. This is not the new technology. If you think Project Cortex 2020 before, that's been in the works for a while. Machine learning has been around for a while. So we're using the capabilities that are tried and tested to be able to identify information and get the most out of our content so that we can classify it appropriately, so that we can secure it appropriately and find it appropriately as well. So the AI-powered content management, really bringing it's the essential part of maximising the value of content stored within your Microsoft 365 environment. The enhanced content experience is really about better ways to engage with that critical content, managing it and protecting it through its life cycle, which really is crucial for tools like Microsoft 365 Copilot to be able to find and surface the right information and give you the best response it can based on all the information it can find and all the information that you've got access to. So preparation for Copilot really is about helping you organize the content with that AI-driven automation, making sure it's ready for use with Microsoft Copilot, and making sure that the data that you've got, which we can apply, again, the bulk capabilities of applying SharePoint Premium across your existing content, but also the future content, making sure that that is tagged and classified appropriately and you're getting the most out of that. And importantly, a lot of concerns that we hear customers saying is that what if I ask Copilot a question that gives me the answer to that I shouldn't get, such as, what is the CEO's pay? Typical one. How do I make sure that I'm not exposing sensitive information to the organisation? And there's ways that you can do that with restricted SharePoint capabilities, and there's a whole bunch of things you can do, but ultimately best practice starts from being good from the very beginning. And if you can automate that process and use SharePoint Premium to start automating the best practices in your organisation and remove the need for people to remember to do it, and remove the mistakes that happen from when humans get involved, then that's a great opportunity to be more effective there. And information protection and permission. Before launching Copilot, SharePoint Premium, will allow you to use that information protection rules and settings across your data and documents and make sure that the governance framework within the organisation is being adhered to. So effectively, it's laying the foundation for great infrastructure to allow people to have the best user experience in working with the content that they've got without them thinking about the governance part of it as much, and taking that burden of responsibility away from people and putting it into rules that the organisation can automate and have it across all of your information, making sure it's it's managed, it's protected, and it's ready for AI enhanced productivity. That's big. Jonica, over to you.
And just to finish off, wanted to provide some insight into the SharePoint Premium licensing. So as we touched on, it's still a work in progress to roll it under the SharePoint Premium umbrella. So there's still services that you'll be aware of and would have to purchase separately. But from a content processing perspective, SharePoint Syntex, it's pay as you go as well at the moment, ranging from 0.01 cent to 2 cents per transaction. I think the $2 per transaction is around the e-signatures, whereas some of the simple transactions around processing quite thick, and there's a full list there which we can share. SharePoint Advanced Management, $4 per user per month. So again, more to the user as well, targeted at the admin side of things. From an archiving perspective, pay as you go as well. So it is 5 cents per gigabyte archived, and then also 60 cents per gigabyte to reactivate or rehydrate. From a backup perspective, pay as you go. This is per workload at the moment, so it's 15 cents per gigabyte per month. And there's a calculator here that can help you calculate that. There are some different parameters which you'd have to figure out in terms of retention. It's like 90 days, 180 days, and 360 days. So there's some different metrics that will affect the pricing. Yeah. So essentially, we want to share some information, but we can give you some more information around the full price lists if required. So how do we start?
Perfect. Thank you, Janica. Thank you, Aaron. So typically what we see customers looking at from the SharePoint journey is around understanding how best to look at SharePoint and how it's going to meet the business needs. We often see that, as you touched on earlier, Janica, the storage and backup assessment is somewhere that a lot of organisations decide to start given the need and the criticality of having that sort of BRC plan, and then the BTP plan is really important. The Copilot assessment, as you touched on, Aaron, I think that's another one where customers are looking to understand how to embrace AI more deeply, and that often leads to, well, are we ready today for Copilot, and what do we need to do to be ready for it tomorrow? That migration from classic to modern, I think we know SharePoint's been around for some time. There are a lot of legacy implementations of SharePoint that do need to sort of move forward and come out into the light. And it's that sort of, we know where we are, we need to move forward, but how do we do that, and how do we do that safely to ensure that, we move forward? I think as we've sort of seen there, within the content presentation, as we start to look at some of the more exciting features and also some of the key features which are just going to help administration, there's a lot that can be helped right through from metadata tagging automatically through to sensitivity labels, through to the ability to use AI at scale in a tool that traditionally has been, the backbone of the Microsoft ecosystem, but probably not as flexible as it needs to be. So what we typically see is customers looking at those particular 4 areas and saying, okay, well, we want to sort of move down one of those paths. And we're keen to understand what it is from your own perspective as well. So we'll get a poll up to understand what part of SharePoint Premium do you feel is most relevant to yourselves. And as I touched on earlier in the session, we're going to sort of reach out to you as well just to understand when we move to the next session in this series of our winter webinars for modern work, what is it that is going to be more of interest to you that we should really focus in on around those areas. And this series will sort of, cover off 3 or 4 different segments. So we're going to try and get to everyone and make sure that we can get into those areas where you really want to go a bit deeper and understand, A, what's available today, what's coming, and how it might help your business. And I think, as we look at it from the both sides of, the business user process and also the admin side of things, there are benefits for both in terms of how do you administer and control and make sure your SharePoint premium site is optimized and easy to manage and take that burden of overhead away from you as an organization, but also how do you enable business users to do more with the tools they've got. So while Copilot is one of those particular tools, we know that Copilot's not going to be for everyone. So SharePoint, all of a sudden, SharePoint Premium comes to the table as a very, very exciting option for those organizations as well that want to give users a more powerful platform without that full investment into Copilot as well. So it's not a case of you have to do both. It's a case of, you've got the ability to leverage the best of both worlds and maximize the productivity gains from both of those. So these are the typical starting points for our journey, and we're keen to sort of understand, as I said, from the polls which has been shared, what is it you feel is those areas of interest for yourself? Are you coming from the governance and administration side, or are you taking the lens of business and what you could do for your organisation or business departments and units, or is it a bit of both? And importantly then as well, we will also be more than happy to take some questions as well from anyone online, just so that we can start to sort of potentially help you out with a bit of knowledge as well. Got the team available, got some smart brains online. So,
and then I'm here as well. So comic relief.
So 10 minutes to go. Happy to sort of field any questions.
I saw a couple in the chat. I wanted to talk to. The first one was around the document hub and what's the difference between creating a team site and sharing a document file to externals. Probably the key thing is is that separation. Your document hub is designed to have external sharing enabled. You're not having to open up for external guests, external users within your intranet. You can keep it secure and locked down, and it's that central place for you to provide access to information in an extranet type of environment. So, and it also allows you, whilst the image I showed wasn't very nicely branded, the ability to brand it and customize it and make it look more on brand with your organisation is a critical part, while still providing access to people, access to information that a person can get through their Gmail or your own identity account.
Was the question from Jules in WA around the Power Automate and using Power Platform for the automation workflow. Yep, that's definitely one of those strong points of the Microsoft ecosystem, especially now when we're going to have image tagging and sort of the smart tagging, smart labeling coming through SharePoint Premium. It's going to play really nicely to the Power Automate Power Platform suite of products. So that is going to be a natural synergy that you're going to find automatically out of the box, but it also works well with other particular workflow automation tools as well, especially now with the capability of Graph API and those sort of things to be able to get into that data and that content as well. So this is really going to start to make the whole workflow automation and process so much easier, given, as I said, SharePoint has promised this for many, many years, and now SharePoint Premium is coming to the table with some of these features. And as it continues to go through the roadmap, we're going to see a lot more enhancement and a lot more capability, business productivity unlocked. And that's the key, make those savings from 5 minutes to 30 minutes per time. Look at it from an individual user level, look at it from an enterprise business level, and you're going to start to see savings are going to be taken from that employee level right through to enterprise, and you're going to get the best of both worlds.
I think I can see a question from Tom around advanced management. Do you have to license all of the users? The answer is no. Internally for us, we only license our admins, so you don't have to license all the users in the tenant, so just the key users from the admin side of things. I can also see another question here around, does SharePoint Premium work with SharePoint Classic? Yes, it does. It doesn't matter in terms of whether you're using Classic or Modern. So SharePoint Advanced, the content processing piece, as well as the advanced management piece, the governance piece, will work no matter where your content is at the moment. There may be some things to consider around the content experience part of moving to Modern, but from the admin side of things and the processing side of things, SharePoint Premium will work with SharePoint Classic.
There's another one there from Chris, who just talks about, have we seen any success stories around content processing, Syntex or related, to extract useful and meaningful metadata to drive business value? If so, what was the biggest learning from this type of project? What's the cost benefit?
Certainly, one of the implementations we did around contract management, I think that was a success there around, again, that sort of like a concierge around contracts that are coming in, being able to have them come in, creating the models, with Syntex to be able to identify what type of contract it is, being able to extract that information out of the document, apply it to the metadata, like the scenario that we talked through. That just the time saving alone of knowing when you're in an organisation that you might have, different people in the legal team that are working on different types of legal agreements, being able to route that to them, but being able to classify them up front. So that's a pretty trivial implementation without going into too much and being too overly complex around it. Even just the simplified piece of being able to classify your information and extract it out without getting into some of the fancier stuff that you can do. The value there is pretty good, considering the price of the Syntex licensing.
I think the only thing to add to that is something we're working on with a school at the moment is digitising digital records, which is a big problem, not only with schools, but a lot of organisations who have paper-based records, right? So how do we bring that into the digital world? So setting up a framework, leveraging SharePoint Premium and the OCR capabilities to train that model to know what to look for. So when we scan that information, bring it into SharePoint, it's able to differentiate the types of content. If it's something that we can apply a label to it to say this type of content is related to a child, it needs to be maintained forever. Or this is a piece of content that is related to finance, it can be related, it can kept for 10 years. If it doesn't know it, then it needs to be reviewed by a person, right? So streamline that process for allowing the school to go off to all the different areas of their businesses, scan that in, have a repeatable framework to actually scan that information in, bring it in, understand what the content is without someone physically having to read and review every single physical piece of content. So that's from I suppose, a person and a cost saving from a people perspective that we're driving there. So pretty cool little project.
Scott had a couple of questions. So when is the SharePoint Annotate and e-signature browser coming? I believe sometime this year. We don't have an exact date on that, so I can't really help you there. We can find out. We can have a look.
I think elements of the annotation is already here.
It is.
So
yep.
PDF documents can be annotated already. There is no signature component to it yet, but I think some of the other file types are still to be released.
The second question Scott had, which is around document processing and AI image tagging. How does it work? Can it be turned on for a whole SharePoint document library or a specific folder? Can it update the document or dump the metadata elsewhere? So yes, you can enable it at the document library. So Syntex can be enabled at the document library. You might, in the scenario where you've got the image library or you want it to go to metadata going to elsewhere, the ability to have Syntex or Premium extract that metadata. You might have a dumping library, a drop-off library where everything goes into one spot. It can then work out what type of document is it. Is it an image? Is it a contract? Is it this? Extract that information out of it. It can then trigger a workflow, which will then route that document to another site, another library, wherever it needs to go within that workflow. So you're not limited to being constrained within that document library. You can have the SharePoint Syntex initiate workflows which will go and do something with it. So the real value is, again, I can have a single place for people to put everything. The Syntex can work out what does it need to go, where does it need to be routed to, and then go and apply that metadata to the new location and anything along those lines. So it can be quite powerful that way.
Michael's asked a similar question as well. Will any of these tools be able to access multiple copies of files spread throughout multiple directories and libraries, so we can automate archiving of old versions and keeping one active? So I'm assuming keeping the latest active for better search results.
Yep. Yes. So the answer is yes. It can, and again, you can. It's all around how you, I guess, architect the solution that you want, and the benefit of, again, having something like that AI assisted document management is you put the rules in there to say, hey, if I've got this enabled across all of my libraries, and here are the rules around it. So if it's an old version that hasn't been touched, do something with it, or have it across multiple locations and take care of that archiving capabilities. Scott also asked about the external document hub safe. How does it handle malware from being uploaded, executed? Don't know the answer. You can assume that as Microsoft is the largest security provider in the world, it'd be pretty safe. And similar, you can block, similar to what you can do now, you can block uploads of certain file types, etc. So, but can't comment with any certainty on that one.
Perfect. So we're just about on time. I'm going to give both of you 30 seconds. I know, Janica, you talked very much from the admin side of things when it comes to SharePoint Premium. Aaron, you talked a bit more about the business users and benefits of content management, dynamic management, a lot of content creation. 30 seconds each, simplify in terms of, what this means for the admin user, for the business user.
Sure.
Janica, over to you first.
Get the boring stuff out of the way first.
I think from an admin perspective, it really just brings some more advanced controls. While some of them seem simple, and you'd think it'd be included in SharePoint, some of these things are very handy, right, to make sure that we can be smarter with our administrative activities and tasks and do it more effectively and efficiently, and removing the reliance on users or end users to execute some of those things for us, right? So I think that's the key thing, is removing that reliance on end users where we need to.
Perfect. Aaron, business users.
Business users, and I think it's the same concept really, is how do you make it for a better user experience for people? The utopia of document management and records management and governance in an organisation is, you get the balance between, as an end user, I just want to do my stuff, save it somewhere and not have to think about it. As a records manager, you might want to have them fill out 50 pieces of metadata, because that way we can classify it properly and put some routing rules, etc. And as an organisation, you need to find that middle ground. You want people to classify information. You want to make sure that the information is accurate, it's secure, I can find it, but you want people to be productive and not do it. So some of these tools can enable that better user experience by giving the organisation what they need around their data, and making sure that it's findable, that it's secure, and at the same time making it easy for the end user to not have to think too much about it. Don't make me think about these things. And importantly, saving a document is not really an issue. It's finding it again that becomes the problem. So having these tools in place to allow me to save my document and have the AI classify it and put all the richness around it so that I can find it again tomorrow, or you can find it next year and get the value out of it, so that the information that I'm working on becomes information and knowledge for the broader organisation. This is where it starts to really start coming into its own about being able to create a really good user experience for me as the creator of content, but also the best user experience for me from a consumer of it. So it's covering both ends. That's not
You did take a bit longer than 30 seconds, but that's okay. You're talking about the sexy stuff, so I know, unlike governance, which sorry to all the administrators out there. So look, this is the first part of our winter series on the modern work webinars. So please make sure you do like, share, subscribe to the channels, and make sure you do promote this. Also, we're keen to get your feedback on what you want to hear about us talk about in the next session and the session after that. So we're going to sort of reach out and make sure that we deliver the content you want, and we keep feeding back to the community here at Antares. We are passionate about SharePoint. We've been doing it for quite some time now, 17 years, as I mentioned earlier. Together we have a collective load of experience, so we really want to make sure that the community benefits from our knowledge, and also we help solve your problems. If we all grow together, we're a powerful community in terms of SharePoint awareness and knowledge. So thank you for everyone. Please join the next series, but also more importantly, thank you for taking time out today from everyone here at Antares.